Hello everyone, I am prom queen Minion Michelle and I will be returning to do the final episode for this month of Halloween. So after this video, regular Michelle will be coming back. So without further ado, let me address what my video is for this month, and that is the underrated children's film, in particular one that is PG rated, Monster House. Yes, Monster House. It's a relatively recent film, and is one that is 3D, so not 2D. And it was definitely, you could tell within the earlier years of 3D, since the quality and as far as the animation is concerned is not as up to par of standards as what we would expect from 3D animation nowadays. But regardless, it still offers a fairly interesting story, and I think really cool characters to go along with it, and is something that you would come to expect to, I guess, enjoy at least around this time of year when it comes to Halloween. So without further ado, the reason why I feel like this one was pushed a little bit under the bus was the fact that it is, again, not a DreamWorks or Disney production, and even though I think it initially made a good chunk of money when it came out, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of people really focus on this particular film. And I think that only makes sense, though, because I think some of these films that do end up kind of either going with a larger production going up against a larger production company is rather difficult to gain the same amount of recognition and box office numbers. But regardless, I still think it's important to note the fact that, again, it wasn't a bigger main animation studio company that was doing this particular work, and I think that gives it all the more reason to that it wouldn't be as looked into as some other Halloween films, or at least Halloween related. And that's the interesting thing about this film, actually, too, is that it actually takes place around the time of Halloween. And it actually does the sort of children's horror genre in a rather interesting way. Because instead of the monster being some kind of dead thing, whether it be in the form of a zombie or a ghost, this monster is actually a house, hence the title Monster House. So it basically kind of comes to life, and in doing so creates a very kind of unsettling environment. And basically the three main characters are these, I would consider them more preteens. They don't seem to be like within high school yet, but what ends up happening is they end up discovering the existence of this monster house and the fact that it is actually alive and moving around and doing weird stuff. But unfortunately, obviously, nobody believes them, and so it's eventually up to them to try to figure out how to sort of get rid of this monster house and ultimately kind of destroy it, since it's kind of causing some havoc. And it has a lot of interesting things going for it, because it's definitely not the typical kind of, I think, Halloween films that we've seen over the years, in that it tries to provide something unique. And again, having the sort of villain or antagonist sort of be a house as opposed to, you know, some ghoul and some monster that we've seen time and time again, I think is really what makes this film rather interesting and sort of stick out from the crowd of children's more related Halloween content, even though I think this one can be enjoyable for adults as well. And again, it has the PG rating, so it kind of has, you know, some of the more adult-like humor in it as well. So again, that's also something I think that's important to note. But overall, I think despite me not being able to really reveal too much, because doing so would sort of jeopardize the various plot elements that are sort of important to this film, I think it's good to know that this kind of a film does end up trying to sort of take these risks and push the boundaries as far as what we can understand is terrifying. I think even though, again, the animation is not as stellar or as well executed as some other films are. I still think that overall its whole story and its message and the characters as well is what really makes it worth watching, and worth the time and investment. But I think that's really ultimately, though, all I can say about it without really giving too much away. However, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had a pleasant Halloween. And regular Michelle will be back in the next video, and we'll be sure to have everything uploaded and caught up by the end of today. But until next time, everybody, hopefully next year,